my Spanish speaking friend. She was like, she's like, it's not that hard. You just
Our
like
grammar
memorize
is-
some exceptions.
Our
Well, a lot
grammar
of it
simple.
is an understanding of how to learn a language. Like one of the things
That's
that's
true.
great about about Chinese is that the grammar doesn't follow what you would use in a Romance language, right? And so when you learn it, or at least when you understand it, you can't really translate it word for word. So you don't. You just know what phrases refer to. Like, well, yeah, I like.
Well, the
I
grammar
want.
is different, and the grammar in
Yeah.
English is very simple.
Yeah.
There's so many more cases, even in Spanish. Russian has like dozens of cases for words.
Well, and the biggest thing that slipped me up in Spanish was gender, right?
Oh,
When
yeah.
to
We don't
use-
have to
and-
do that.
Yeah, we don't even
and
have
I was
that.
like,
So
oh, wait, I'm
yeah.
using the wrong gender. Oh,
I think English pronunciation can be difficult, but English grammar probably is easier, I would guess.
There's gender. There's also, you know, being polite versus talking to your friend. In many languages, it's like
Right.
it's really rude
we
to
just got
say
rid of
it
that
in a
polite version of
in a
you.
yeah.
Who and to and all that.
All
Yeah,
that
we're just
stuff,
impolite
yeah.
to everybody.
Yeah. Or it's like if you're speaking to somebody older than you, you just always go polite and then you wait for them to
Mhm.
say, "Oh, no, please. Be less formal." Kind
Art
of thing.
thou ready? Actually, we got
I
rid of
am
the
ready.
informal one, didn't we? We kept the polite one. Are you to
Are
be
all
polite?
y'all ready?
Are all y'all ready to do the show?
Yes.
I already are.
Already. I already cat. Okay, here we go. Sarah
Yes.
with the read in 3, 2.
Brian S. Richard has supported independent tech news directly for about a day. You want to be like Brian? Become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, May 23rd, 2019 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from the Podfeed Podcast, I'm Allison Sheridan.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
We are going to talk about Tesla. We're going to talk about gender bias in your voice assistant. We're going to talk a little bit about a lot of things, including Rotten Tomatoes changing how they display some ratings, which means I'll disclose that my wife works for Rotten Tomatoes. It's going to be a jam-packed show, folks. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
The world's largest contract chip maker, TSMC, said that shipments to Huawei would not be affected by U.S. restrictions for the time being. TSMC spokesperson Elizabeth Sun said that the company is assessing the impact of the U.S. restrictions.
Lenovo reported a tripling of quarterly profit on strong PC sales. The company said most of its products are unaffected by tariffs, but CEO Yang Yuanqing said it has contingency plans to shift production to its centers outside of China, such as India, Mexico, Hungary, Brazil, and the United States. PC and smart devices revenue grew 10% on 9% growth in shipments, and mobile lost money despite revenue growing 37%.
Oh, PC outgrowing mobile. It's a topsy-turvy world. Walmart began selling its own 8 and 10.1 inch Android tablets under the On brand. So they can stay on brand. It's got 2 N's, O-N-N. Has a 1280 by 800 IPS display, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 16 gigabytes of storage, runs Google's Android Pie, and the 8-inch model costs you $64. The 10.1 inch, $79.
But those are amazing.
Bloomberg says it obtained internal documents showing that Amazon is working on a wearable designed to detect a user's emotional state based on the sound of their voice. Amazon patented a system back in 2017 to determine emotional state by vocal analysis and offer suggestions. The wristband, which is codenamed Dylan, uses that system. Dylan would pair with a smartphone app and eventually tailor responses based on our emotional states. A beta test is underway, but it's only experimental at this stage.
I'm sorry, but I just picture it saying, Allison, you're getting too emotional. And then I break it with a hammer.
Your TSMC hammer. Software developer Panic unveiled a handheld 74 by 76 by 9 millimeter gaming device called Playmate. Has a 2.7 inch black and white display with 2 buttons, a D-pad, and a crank on the side as an additional control mechanism. Instead of game cartridges, Playmate comes with a series of 12 titles released over time, with new titles unlocked each week, starting with Crankin's Time Travel Adventure. The Playmate should ship in early 2020 for $149, with pre-orders available later this year. All right.
It's adorable.
I always loved Panic's FTP program.
Yep.
So how about that?
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about where Google Duplex is these days as far as how many humans are not only using it, but being the Duplex voice. Sarah?
Well, Google says that about a quarter of calls that are made with a Google Duplex system start with a human rather than the AI that the system usually relies on. Now, you might say, well, why is that happening? Google says this happens when the system is unsure if the business being called actually takes reservations or if the user of Duplex is suspected to be a spammer. Google also says about 15% of calls that begin with AI will need a human to intervene at some point. Google uses data from the human-made calls to train its AI.
Yeah, this is in response to a New York Times story that was kind of calling them out, like, we were getting this person that said they were a human. Were they really? Well, yeah, it turns out they were. And Google's like, yeah, we do this because we're trying to make Duplex better, and we want to make sure that it doesn't cause undue confusion on the side of the restaurants.
This story confuses me, though. This is saying before they call, they already know that they're not going to use the AI to make the call. So how do they know that the user is suspected to be a spammer if they haven't called yet?
I'm going to guess.
Precog.
But I'm guessing that certain businesses that are listed, that the Duplex user says, yeah, use Duplex to make my reservation. Google probably has an index that says, are we sure they take reservations, right? Either by knowing, okay, they've got an open table link. Okay, totally know that. Or it says very clearly on their website, for reservations, call, etc. But if it's unclear, they may kick it to a human because that is a more complex negotiation. If they're like, oh, we don't take reservations, and you can say, oh, okay, I'm really sorry. We'll note that, add it to the database, etc. That seems to be what they're saying here.
Okay.
What's interesting to me is, okay, if we're saying 25% of those calls end up having to be made by a human because the system is just a little unsure and doesn't want to get it wrong. So how many calls are made per day? Meaning how many humans need to be on hand to be there and step in? That's my question. Because we don't really know that. Duplex is in early stages.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing they probably don't have that high of usage.
But it's like, is it like 5 people sitting around an office being like, Duplex is being weird, let me call the restaurant? Or is it like, a huge call center?
I'm going to guess it's a call center of some size, whether it's huge.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, yeah, I'm guessing they have some people dedicated to this. Maybe I'd be curious to know if there are people dedicated or if these are people who are also customer service for other things. And then they just get routed a Duplex call every once in a while. Like, oh, okay, I got to make a Duplex call. Here we go.
That would make the most sense.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting that, in this world where we sort of fear AI taking over, every time we see it used practically, it needs help. It can't do everything that people are afraid it can do yet.
We're afraid of Duplex. Look, Duplex doesn't even work.
Rotten Tomatoes is changing how it calculates its audience scores. These are the ones with the popcorn icons next to them, not the Rotten or Fresh Tomato scores based on critics' reviews. Those are the famous ones you see advertised in movies and everything. That's a whole different thing. If you go to RottenTomatoes.com and you look, you'll see a little popcorn score. That's the audience score. That's what they estimate the audience thinks versus the critics. Well, recently, the company stopped user reviews from being posted until after the movie premiered because people were bombing movies they didn't like or because they wanted to make a political statement of some sort. So they said, well, we're going to make it so that until the movie's out and the general populace can see it, we're not going to allow reviews to go up. However, they went a step further today. Now, when you leave a review, it will ask you if you want to verify that you've seen the movie. If you're verified, your review will count toward the audience score. If you're not verified, you can still leave your review, but it'll just get lost in the list of reviews. It will not count towards that audience score. At the moment, the only way to get verified, though, is to buy a ticket through Fandango. Fandango is owned by Fandango, which also owns Rotten Tomatoes. They're all part of one company with movie clips as well, and that is majority owned by Comcast. So if you buy through Fandango, then you can verify your Rotten Tomatoes review. Rotten Tomatoes says it's working with AMC, Regal, and Cinemark to verify purchases direct from those theater chains later this year. They're working on some ways to make sure that if you were part of a group and you didn't buy the ticket yourself, you'll be able to verify your review. But that's forthcoming. Right now, it's only the purchaser of a ticket on Fandango that can leave the verified review.
Well, there have been enough gaming of systems that you mentioned Tom, that I can see why this is moving in the right direction. It sounds somewhat convoluted, but yeah, if I am hell-bent on leaving a bad review and I have to go through a couple more hoops, then I probably will, because I really want my review to count. If I feel that passionate about movie in a good or a bad way, I would want it to count. But yeah, the opening it up to more movie chains would make more sense.
Yeah, and La Roman asked a good question. How about outside the United States? Fandango operates in multiple countries. It's outside of the United States, but it doesn't operate in all countries. So if you're in a country where Fandango doesn't sell tickets, then if you're outside of Brazil, they operate in Brazil, but maybe they don't operate in Colombia. And if you're in Colombia, it's like, wait, I want to leave a verified review. Well, you can't yet. I haven't figured that part out yet either.
I never noticed there was anything but the tomatoes. I never noticed the popcorn. So now I'll look for it.
Yeah, I can't.
Well, sometimes they vary somewhat wildly.
Yeah.
So I usually just stick with the critics.
And I think most people do.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of the same sorts of things that are happening everywhere on the internet where, people try to hijack a system to make a point. Rotten Tomatoes is trying to combat that. And as I mentioned earlier, I have healthcare thanks to Rotten Tomatoes because that's where my wife works. So.
I've got good news for everybody. Ad tracking, not always evil. Yay, we can just go home now. No, ad attribution looks at something called conversion, which is the data around ads being clicked and leading to purchases, something companies need to know to better spend their ad dollars. But of course, once they're tracking you, then they'll want to know everything about you that they can possibly get. And they can. Apple's developing something called privacy-preserving ad click attribution. Rolls right off the tongue to solve this. To solve this, the system limits the number of campaign IDs that makes it harder to track individuals. Only the website where the ad was clicked can measure those clicks. That cuts out third-party tracking. The browser will occasionally delay sending the conversion data for up to 2 days to keep it from being associated with other browsing data. And then this is all done at the browser level to limit what data the ad networks and merchants can even access at the beginning. The system is available in a preview release, and Apple is proposing it as a web standard through the W3C web platform incubator community group.
Sarah, this really confused me, and I'm going to have to ask Barb Buchatz, who explains everything security-wise to me, what the distinction is here. But in Apple's Safari user guide, they say, if you select prevent cross-site tracking in preferences and privacy, they say, and I'm quoting, unless you visit and interact with the third-party content provider as a first-party website, their cookies and website data are deleted. So what is this for if I can already check that box and none of this ever happens in the first place?
Not everybody checks that box.
Okay. But why did they have to come out? So what this privacy preserving ad click attribution is part of the WebKit consortium thing that they're part of, that they open source and all that. I don't understand what it is. They already had this.
This would
be a standard, not like
this would be default.
Yeah.
This would be, whether you've decided to check that tick box or not, this is going to happen, and it's going to prevent that from happening. And the reason they haven't made it default is they don't want to have that backlash against advertisers. So it sounds like their solution is, let's create a way where the advertisers can get that conversion rate tracked that they need, and everybody agrees they need, without violating privacy. And then we can protect the privacy of more users that way.
Okay. And it would apply to more than Apple if anybody more than Apple was using WebKit.
Yes, and that's why they're submitting it to the W3C to try to get it up. Yeah, okay. Other browser makers on board. Please do still ask Bart about it, though, because I'm very curious what he says as well.
Right. A report from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organizations says people will speak to voice assistant machines more than their partners within the next 5 years. The report is titled, "I'd Blush If I Could, Closing Gender Divides in Digital Skills Through Education." This report alleges that Amazon and Apple's voice assistants fuel gender stereotypes. Female voices are used preferentially in household devices versus navigation and in-vehicle devices, which tend to be male voices. The study recommends not making assistants female by default and to use the assistant's responses to discourage abusive language. The study notes that the percentage of computer and information science majors in the U.S. has dropped from 37% to 18% in the last 30 years and calls for more women in technology development roles to help avoid this kind of bias. Now, I thought this was a fascinating study. One of the things they showed, they've got a little chart in the article at CBS News that shows the responses of the 4 different assistants to abusive languages, and it was really abusive language, I should say. It was really interesting to me how submissive Siri was. I mean, they say these awful things to her, and she's like, "Oh, I could blush." Well, I would never teach my daughter to respond that way, right? I mean, that would never come up. But the Google Assistant would at least say things like, "I don't understand," when somebody was being obnoxious.
Which is what Amazon's assistant usually does to me when I'm not trying to be obnoxious, but sometimes I'm frustrated, and she'll just kind of sit me down. It's funny. I agree with a lot of what you just laid out, Allison, and there's some interesting conundrums and some thoughts that I have on this that go at a deeper level. But I will say that because I do use Siri quite often, I have for a long time, and especially when I'm mobile, that's my AI of choice. I did switch to a male voice just for fun, just to do something different. And it just really bothered me and I couldn't deal with it. And I don't think it was because it was a male voice. It was because I just didn't want change. I liked things the old way. I had become familiar with her cadence and the way that she did things. No, there might be more to that. And I didn't really think about it that much until we started talking about this. But I do think that there's a lot of gender bias, and so many times we are unaware of it. And that's for everybody.
Yeah, I think this article in particular was not, or this story was not so much about how often we say, "I'm not talking to you, Siri," or Amazon or whoever. It was more about actual abusive things. If you say "you're hot" to Siri, she'll say, "Oh, how can you tell?" Where, Google Assistant will kind of dodge it and say, "Some of my data centers run as hot as 95 degrees Fahrenheit." There are more profane examples in the article, and that's where Google Assistant just goes, "My apologies, I don't understand." Where Siri's over there saying, "Oh, I could blush." And Alexa says, "Well, thanks for the feedback." That is weird. I don't know. I have trouble envisioning a team of women writing that response and choosing that as what we would have written. I think there's a reasonable chance the researchers are correct. And if there was a higher percentage of women working on the programming of the responses, you might not get that same kind of response.
I have the male voice set for Siri. And so I'm going to try something real quick here because I've never done this before.
Are you going to be profane?
"Hey, Siri, you're hot."
"I'm just well put together."
Aha. Male
Interesting.
voice, different response. Now, I don't know if this study has an exhaustive list of the responses, but that does seem to be a more male-centric response. "I'm just well put together." "He's very well put together" is definitely a phrase I could hear. So that's interesting.
Yeah, you're right. The responses do change. Maybe they pulled out the most subservient ones.
That's possible.
They also said that in Europe, they tend to use male voices more because they have a history of male domestic servants in upper class families.
That starts to feel like, well, then every response is bad of an assistant, and I'm not sure that those countries have more of a tradition of that. I mean, does the UK have the male voice by default? I thought it had the female voice by default. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
and a lot of this is it is an evolution of the conversation of when a company might introduce, a chatbot is a little bit more modern, but some sort of helper assistant, and you kind of get these female names over and over, and after a while people are like, well, hold on. I mean, why is the assistant always a woman? And I think that introduced a really interesting conversation, but we're still having it because as this AI becomes more and more robust, if your assistants have different answers for some sort of a cheeky question or worse, why?
Yeah. So I think this gets back to the general diversity thing. Like we've talked a lot about Google having problems with what their AI recognizes as an African-American, for example. And if they had a diverse workforce, maybe those mistakes wouldn't have happened. I think this might fit into that same category. And it just keeps coming back to, we got to get more girls in the tech.
Yeah. There's I just did a Tech Republic top 5 on ways to improve recruitment of women in IT. And it was based on an article that was written by a couple of women at Tech Republic, based on some actual research out there. So you can go check that out at techrepublic.com. That is going to help. I mean, I look at this too, and I wonder, why isn't there a gender neutral voice that I could choose? Why does it always have to be male or female? And that is possible to create. So there's all kinds of questions about how this sort of thing reflects our gender roles. I don't think it's dangerous to society, but something important to think about. And another example, like you say, Allison, of where a more diverse workforce would help us have better products. Side note, John Flowers wrote in, not even related to this, but I think it's a wider version of the same talk, telling us about a talk he heard from Karen Bartleson, past president of the IEEE, speaking about ethical design. He says after her talk, he asked her if people should feel bad for yelling at their Amazon Echo or Google Home. She said that yes, some people treat their home devices like pets and don't like it when people yell at their pet. I continued the question with, if we have affection for our devices, we won't be willing to put them in places of danger, like firefighting and chemical spills. And she said that this is definitely why we have to be careful giving too much affective behavior, affect as in emotion, to robots we need to not care about. But that may change as robots eventually achieve sentience.
Googly eyes.
Googly eyes. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, too cute. Won't do anything. What are you going to do? Reprimand him?
Well, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. Today, in an email to employees obtained by Reuters and actually easily obtainable everywhere across the internet right now, Tesla CEO Elon Musk said the company is on track to deliver a record number of cars to customers in Q2. Previous high mark was 90,700 delivered in Q4. Then they had a drop off in Q1. And the company says it has 50,000 new orders as of Tuesday. Of course, this leak, if you can even call it a leak when it was spread as far and wide as it was, happens a day after Consumer Reports described Tesla's new lane change assistant function as like monitoring a kid behind the wheel for the very first time. We talked about that on the show yesterday. Well, we got an email from a Tesla driver, Craig, who says, as an owner of a 2017 Tesla Model S, I'm not quite sure where Consumer Reports is making their observation. Autopilot is a huge stress reliever as someone that drives very long distances almost every day. The system lets you know well in advance of any lane changes and is fully customizable from mild all the way to a Scott Johnson Mad Max level of lane changes. No, seriously, it has Mad Max. And Elon has suggested even adding an LA mode. The system used to be like a 17-year-old driver, but now is solid and a joy to use on the highway. Anyway, just a thought from a fan in Orlando, Craig. Well, thank you, Craig. We also have another brand new, newly minted Tesla driver with us. Allison, you sent us a video of the lane changes that your Tesla does. How do you feel about all this?
Well, I think I might know what they're talking about. Now, I haven't done, there's like 28 different kinds of autopilot-y kind of features in the Tesla, so you have to be accurate, or you don't have to be. You could choose to be accurate about which one you're talking about. The one I have experience with is where you're in autopilot mode, and so it's steering and it's staying within the lanes and it's slowing and stopping depending on traffic. If you turn on your turn signal, it has solid blue lines showing you the lanes it thinks it can see. You turn on your turn signal, the lane you're trying to turn into turns into a dashed line. If there's a car or anything impeding you changing lanes, it will turn red dashed. Then when the traffic clears, it will move out and it'll turn blue dashed, it moves out. And then once you get into another lane, now it's all solid blue. So that's not completely the total autopilot drive, navigate me from here to there mode. But what I noticed, in some cases, we turn on the turn signal, it waits till the car goes by, and then it smoothly moves out very graciously. But I was driving in some pretty heavy LA traffic, and it did jerk face mode, where it could make it because it accelerates 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. It's a bullet. It could accelerate enough to not slow the guy down behind me, but I never would have pulled in front of that guy. And I realized one of the things I think it can never understand is how long have you been waiting to change lanes and how long is it gonna be? So, you've been waiting for 3 minutes to get out of this darn lane and nobody will let you in. You would make the turn that it did. But I could see that there was plenty of space behind that guy. I would have let him go, and go after him. So I wonder whether they ended up in a bunch of situations where it did what it could safely do.
Yeah, without the
But it wasn't really
context
necessary.
of yes, being gracious to your fellow drivers, or the fact that everyone's been cutting you off, and you've got to get over a lane or something.
Yeah, and how jerk face are you? I'm kind of wondering whether that might be part of it, because in two very different circumstances, it was a jerk in one and not in another.
Yeah, but this may just be an example of the difference between what objectively is safe and what we psychologically consider to be polite driving.
Yeah,
Well,
because I didn't
and-
feel unsafe, but it was like, okay.
Yeah, I've been accused of being an overly defensive driver, so whatever. That's just, I like safety. But what if the person or the team over at Consumer Reports with their model, going through those tests, had a certain way that they feel about how one should drive?
Yeah, their own emotions.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
See, it's AI all over again.
Yeah, it might be part of that. The other thing I wanted to comment on, though, was this high mark they're saying they're expecting, or at least Elon Musk is saying that he expects they're going to deliver a record number. Remember, the federal and state tax rebates are being diminished for Teslas because they have shipped so many cars. Once it gets past, I think it's 200,000 cars, a given manufacturer, they start phasing out those tax rebates. So it was $7,500 last year. At the end of the year, it dropped to $3,750. By June, it's going to cut in half again, which is one of the reasons I bought in April. So that might be causing another acceleration of the purchases.
Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily mean like these numbers are bad or something, but it does.
Really sound good.
It's like, if this is the thing that's driving it, maybe that drives Tesla to enough of a scale that it can continue to sell them at higher numbers, even when it loses the subsidy. If enough people have them, and the prices can come down because they're manufacturing more of them. Problem for Tesla up till now has been they can't make as many as people are interested in. And so that really is what they need to fix. And it seems like this memo is saying they're fixing it.
Yeah, it did take me 3 weeks to get my car, but it was kind of a special order. It wasn't one that was in inventory. It is possible to get cars in inventory much more quickly. I found the overall buying experience to be really, really frustrating. You got a website and you go on there and you put some stuff in, and then nobody will talk to you until you have a delivery date. They won't have any conversations. Nope. Don't know anything. No idea. Nope. They said it'd be 2 weeks for my car. It was almost 3 weeks. Nope. Can't talk to you. Don't know anything. Nope. And you can, and they tell you to download the app, but there's nothing in the app but a picture of the car you don't yet have. 15 minutes before your delivery, all of a sudden there's this flood of wonderful information. Here's how you can learn about your car and what you can do and blah, blah, blah. It's really fun. But that time from when you place the order until you have a delivery date is really frustrating.
How like a tech company.
Also, between Mad Max and insanity mode, I mean,
yeah.
Are you doing yourself any favors about people, buying into the idea that all this Tesla AI is really, really safe?
Yeah. That is very interesting. It does make a lot of, Steve put it really well when we were driving back from Fresno on a long trip. He said that having the self-driving in the lanes allowed him to pay attention to big picture stuff more than, am I driving between the lanes? So he never felt like he had any ability to stop paying attention. That was not on the playing field at all. But he wasn't looking at the lanes. He was looking at situational awareness of vehicles coming up on his left, or maybe there's a piece of a tire in the road in front of him. He was paying attention to those things instead of concentrating on steering. So I think it made him a little safer, but it just doesn't feel that close to self-driving to us yet.
Well, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on others. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. If you hang out on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow is your new favorite group.
The mailbag is full of emails and calls to us.
It is. Speaking of googly eyes, we got a couple good emails about this. Jeff wrote in and said, just listen to today's show. He's talking about yesterday's show. Wanted to share my Marty the Robot experience. And he had sent a couple pictures, said, I wish I had a better picture showing the googly eyes, but my 18-month-old son, Caden, loves Marty. Every time we shop at Giant, we have to track him down and say hello. Marty has sensors that check the floors for spills and messes, alert staff by paging them to the department. He moves very slowly, and he beeps every time he changes direction, so you can hear him from a few aisles away. I feel like the googly eyes definitely makes it easier to accept Marty as something that is there to help. And then he even wrote in again and said, I've now been back to giant. Here's a better picture. Marty is really cute. He's adorable.
It's very tall.
Yeah,
He's tall, yeah. And from his non-googly eye side, you kind of go like, I don't know, how cute is that? His face is quite cute.
Yeah, I could see why they put the googly eyes on him, because when you're seeing the side without the googly eyes, it looks pretty imposing. Like,
Exactly.
in fact, we had an email from Caleb who hates Marty because he beeps all the time and he takes up the aisles and he doesn't like him. But I think Marty really does appeal to children, because Scott also wrote in and said a couple of months ago, we saw Marty in a local giant food store and my 4-year-old daughter loved it and followed it through the store as it navigated to its charging station. We didn't see the googly eyes until it turned around to dock. The eyes are only on the right side of the robot. The giant store had some Marty stickers and coloring pages for her to enjoy, and it was a good intro to robots for her.
Well, I'm glad to see they both spelled googly the same way. I was struggling with how to spell that the other day. And I know we're very precise about spelling and grammar on this show.
We'll have to check with the Academy on how to properly spell googly. I think no E, Googly, right?
That's the way I would do it. Yeah. Googly, but not Google. Just a different kind of Google. Well, thanks everybody who wrote in about Marty and everything that you always write in. Keep them coming. Also, thanks to Allison Sheridan for being here today. Allison, where can people keep up with your fabulous work?
Well, the best place is podfeet.com, and I'm doing a little segment called Tesla Tech, where I'm kind of spitting out little bits and pieces that I'm learning about the cool tech in the car. But I did want to just kind of shill one other thing. I did a video tutorial for Screencast Online on Text Expander, which is a text expansion program for the Mac and Windows. I started out real slow explaining how it works for the noobs, but I accelerated up into some of the really advanced stuff you can do in it, like embedded snippets and date math and even some programming stuff. It's really cool, and I'm very, very proud of it. And that is at screencastonline.com.
Hey, folks, if you want more of me, I've been doing some guest appearances this week. Comedyfilmnerds.com. I got to sit down and chat with those folks about some hot movies coming out like Rocket Man. And just this morning, I joined Patrick Beja's The Phileas Club. I know Patrick's schedule has prevented him from being on Daily Tech News Show. So if you miss Patrick, go to frenchspin.com and download the Phileas Club. It's me and a pro-Brexit Brit named Gareth, all talking about things like Brexit and the Alabama law and all kinds of stuff. So go check that out at frenchspin.com. And thank you to everybody. Sorry?
I just got to plug Phileas Club. Man, awesome show. Never miss it. Love it.
Yeah, it is one of my essentials too. Thanks to everybody who supports us at Patreon, patreon.com/DTNS. I have a by request editor's desk coming out this weekend about spoilers. If you're at the associate producer level or above, you get that. So go become a member if you aren't already at patreon.com/DTNS.
Feedback at Daily Tech News Show is our email address. We're also live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. Join us if you desire and find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Shelly Brisbin on the state of accessibility technology, and Len Peralta will be back tomorrow too. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good night, Rob.
Show.
Great show.
A minute too long. That was because I plugged two things. Sorry.
Oh, we're having too much fun.
Yeah, we just had two hot, like beefy topics too.
Yeah.
I will have you know, Tom and Roger and Allison, it is raining.
Oh,
yes. At least at my house, it's raining.
it was yesterday.
Yes, it was.
Snowed in
Well, no,
Mammoth
we
yesterday.
were talking before the show, like, is it gonna rain? It looks like rain, and we were all like, yeah, it probably won't rain. It's raining.
This is the one thing I don't like about driving in LA is the rain. And it's not that I'm not used to driving the rain. I'm from the Bay Area. It rains all the time. I'm surrounded by a lot of people who don't seem to drive in the rain.
Well, and also my neighborhood is very hilly. And the drainage system is just bad. So it doesn't take much for water to start pooling up. And so cars are going through it and it's shooting out everywhere. And then people get freaked out. That's always like, if it rains for half a day, I'm like, oh, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be puddles everywhere.
I just washed my car.
I did too.
You caused it to rain.
Yeah.
Well, I always wash my car, so that's cheating.
We got some titles here, including Tesla Jerkface Mode,
I like that.
Jeeves Rides Again.
Man, I wish I would have thought of the word Jeeves, the name
Yeah.
Jeeves, when I was explaining that, because I'm like, I
I
can't
was
think of
thinking
anybody
it.
right now, but there were so many of them.
Working toward less Rotten Tomatoes.
Fewer, I think we want to say.
They did that on purpose, didn't they? They just wanted to tweak me. Not everyone's a critic. That's not bad. And then how jerkface are you? Jerkface as a service.
I think Tesla jerkface mode is great.
Yeah? All right.
Yeah, it's
That's
just
what we'll go with for DTS.
Yeah.
So wait, Tesla jerk feathers.
because at this point it's like I might ask, is that really one of the names?
The
that
mode?
they use?
Well, because he
Jerk
would,
face?
right?
Right,
no.
like we got Mad Max in there.
Maybe
Like-
we'll cause it to become the mode.
if
Maybe
if someone says to me, I drive like Mad Max, I'm like, ooh, that sounds dangerous.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe the names are a little too aggressive and they just called it like speedy mode or
Too much speeding. It sounds like speeding.
Zippy. That
Zippy
would be
mode.
that would be something where I'd be like, okay, yeah, right. You're you're peppy.
What would you
yes.
say? I'm 5 minutes out mode. I'm
Patrick,
5 minutes. I'm 5 minutes.
Lying mode. If anyone's 5 minutes out,
They're
5
never,
minutes
no one's
out.
ever 5 minutes out.
no.
No one's talking
Because
to
they
you.
wouldn't
for 5 minutes
bother
out. They're
at
almost
that
there.
point.
Yeah.
5 minutes means like 15. I want you to just chill. Well, that's what I do anyway.
For Good Day Internet, we have Wrath of Can.
Oh, I love
Ah.
that. That's fabulous.
Hold on. What else they got? They got Breath of Can.
Participating in floating participles.
Oh, I like that one.
You was using the wrong words.
Ooh, I like that one.
That's good.
If I was.
Yeah.
were.
Oh, and Bat Friend at the bottom put good grammar internet. I
good.
guess you're trying to do.
We're all good.
day.
Yeah. Wrath of Can from Cervantes 47 in the Discord. That's my favorite.
So that what say you, Sarah, Allison?
I like Rathacan.
Eh,
Let's do it.
come here.
Oh.
There it is.
Oh, it was in there. It's in there twice. MWK 1309 as well.
Oh,
Well, now we really have to choose it.
Yeah.
Yeah. it split the votes.
You have to decide whether to put the.
Splitting the infinitives.
Do you put the at the front or not? I
The
mean, there's
Wrath
a lot
two
to decide
cans.
here.
What's the actual
Yeah,
film?
It's
the
the Wrath of Khan, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I'm
Actually,
gonna
Steve
check.
would know. Steve, tell us.
Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. So
There you
yeah.
go. That's
Speedmaster
fabulous.
says Cervantes was first, so Cervantes for the win.
Cervantes gets the square. When are they going to bring back Hollywood Squares again?
Okay.
When they,
We
you know
keep
what?
getting one.
The problem is
10 years or
there's
so.
too many. There's too many jobs for actors to do. Other than, I mean, isn't Hollywood Squares where you kind of cooled your jets for a while until you picked up like
Your next
more
gig.
work? Yeah.
Well, they had a mixture of regulars and like kind of like, ooh, this person's kind of cool, and they're only here for this
like
episode.
Gilbert Godfrey was on there for like a year or something.
Whoopi Goldberg was the middle square for like 10 years.
Oh, but who was the
and
guy that?
Paul Lynn.
Oh, Paul
Paul
Lynn.
Lynn.
Oh, he was fabulous. But there was another guy. What's his name? He was mocked on Saturday Night Live really well. Shoot.
Like
Well, that could
recently.
be anybody.
No, old, way back.
Three names, right?
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Steve, say it.
I know.
knows? I'm searching. Oh, Rosemary was in it for a while.
It wasn't even really my favorite show, but
It was there. It was
it's just like every time I forget about it, it gets resurrected.
It's a show that you had up running in the house when you were doing something else,
Yeah.
like laundry or
Yeah.
cleaning. Or
Right. Yeah, where Jeopardy, you have to like really pay attention.
So, I know a woman named Kaylee who is a teacher in Japan. She teaches English to little Japanese
Oh,
kids.
yeah.
And
I've done
Yeah.
that one day.
And the way she teaches them, she has programmed using JavaScript. She has recreated 1980s game shows because she's a freak about 1980s game shows. So in JavaScript, she has written Jeopardy, for example. And then she's reconditioned old iPod touches and put new batteries in them and used makey makes for the buttons so that the kids can buzz in and everything. It's crazy. Maybe she can do Hollywood Squares, but she'd have to animate little people.
Like Charles Nelson Riley.
Yes, that's
Oh.
it. Got it.
Thank you,
Charles
SP
Nelson
Sheridan.
He found it?
Yep. He put it in the
Oh,
chat.
there we go. Good job.
I don't even know who that is.
Charles Nelson Riley. Oh, he was.
I mean,
an
I probably
absurd-
do, but I don't remember Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
I
that
see.
guy. He was a character actor, wasn't he? For a while too, or
Oh,
no?
all right, I'll look him up.
I think he was
Sheesh.
only.
Actor,
He was
comedian.
on the show way too much. Like, I don't think he had any other gigs.
I actually, when I think of him, I think of Mystery Science Theater making a Hollywood Squares reference about Charles Nelson Riley, riffing off the Saturday Night Live parody of Charles Nelson Riley from Hollywood Squares.
I like it. I like it. The Ghost in Mrs. Muir is where I remember it, which is probably 20 years before any of the rest of you were born. 1968 to 1970. He played Claymore Gregg, it says.
Back when the St. Louis Blues were in the Stanley Cup every year.
I was definitely not alive yet.
He was also on Match Game, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know him.
Patty Duke show. Yeah, you wouldn't.
Wait, was
It
it
would-
on Hollywood Squares or was it Match Game?
Oh,
Because I don't feel like I know this person.
He was on the Hollywood Square, the Match Game Hollywood Squares hour. So maybe I'm remembering him.
Oh,
I'm remembering him from Match Game.
that's why. But it was all smushed together.
Yeah, there you go. That's why you don't know Sarah.
Well,
Did-
I am looking at some gifs of Charlie, and he had some fun fashion back in the day. I'll tell you what.
Just.
Mhm.
Did anyone watch the All in the Family Good Times? The Jeffersons live versions last night on ABC?
Did
No.
not. Were they
Was
good?
it really good?
I missed it. I wanted to watch it, and I kept thinking it was on Thursday for some reason. And then Eileen got home from a screening, and she's like, "Oh, did you not watch the thing? Is it still on?" And we caught the credits. We caught the
Oh.
Oh,
Thank you everyone for watching.
So it was live?
Yeah, it was a live stream, a
Studio
live
audience.
broadcast of them doing the show.
They don't have like an on-demand thing with your.
You can watch it on Hulu now.
Yeah.
But they broadcast it live. You know the way they
The
do
idea was to
musicals?
watch it live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The idea was like this is going to be a live performance.
Yeah. I remember when they did it with Peter Pan.
Yeah, exactly. And Christopher Walken as Hook. Yeah, that was fun.
It was interesting. I watched
Interesting.
it.
Anyway,
it.
this was Jimmy Kimmel and got Norman Lear to collaborate and put it together, and they had Woody Harrelson as Archie Bunker. They had Marissa Tomei as Edith. Jamie Foxx
Oh.
played George Jefferson. It was a great cast.
I never
I
watched
just-
All in the Family, but I did watch The Jeffersons. So some
didn't
of it
watch
I
The
probably
Jeffersons, I
wouldn't
watched
get
it.
the ha-ha, like
Mhm.
callbacks to the old show, but The Jeffersons, I would.
Yeah, it's funny. My parents they watched All in the Family sometimes, but they didn't like it that much. They loved the Jeffersons though.
We
well,
were the other
Archie
way
Bunker
around.
was very unlikable, but oddly likable at the same time.
We were all in the family house for sure. Didn't take to the Jeffersons.
My
Well,
my
but
mom
All in the
thought
they
Archie
didn't
Bunker
run
reminded her-
concurrently, right?
No,
Sorry.
Jeffersons was a spinoff from.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being a little kid, so All in the Family I was probably just not allowed to watch it because I was.
Yeah.
My mom thought Archie Bunker reminded her of her dad too much.
So that wasn't a good thing.
You know what? I've heard that more than once from
Yeah.
other people. It's like not necessarily their dad, but like a
Was too close to the
grandfather or
truth.
uncle or-
I honestly don't see it. My grandpa, it's one of those father-daughter things where like, things get exaggerated because I'm like, grandpa's much nicer to people than Archie Bunker. Like,
Sally Struthers though was a real strong female character for women's rights and stuff, and fighting with her, trying to get her mother to stand up to Archie and all.
maybe that's why my mom thought Archie Bunker reminded her of her dad because she wanted to be Sally Struthers.
I feel like Sally Struthers was probably on Hollywood Squares.
Well, she was
Watched
definitely
all.
doing a lot of work for Save the Children, wasn't she? Like, wasn't she one of the?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's other than that, an Archie Bunker. That's all I remember her from.
She did all the commercials for feeding the children, right? She did
Yeah,
it
Save the Children. I think
For the
that
price
the
of a cup
children?
of coffee.
Yeah.
I think that's one of her lines, isn't it?
Well, that was part of that organization. They had a guy who did it, but like for the price of cup of coffee, you can provide
So you're saying
nourishing
Sally
meals,
never said
life-giving
price of a cup of
medicines.
coffee?
But that was back in the 80s. Coffee was 50 cents or 35 cents.
I thought Sally Struthers also said that. No?
She might have.
Hmm.
I know they've parodied that one line a lot. They parodied it on SNL where the people that they're standing in front of is like, ask for more money, not just for the price of a cup of coffee.
The one I always think about, my dog looks completely pitiful when she goes voluntarily into her crate. She looks out and she's got this terrible look of agony on her face. And I want to film her and just say, for a nickel a day, you could save this dog. Cause she just looks like she could get a job on those commercials.
Just superimpose Sarah McLachlan next to her. And
Yeah.
Oh, my wife hates those commercials so much. She said, I can't stand, well, not that she hates it. She just can't stand watching them.
Yeah.
Well, that's It's
Now I
supposed
want
to
to see this all
be
on the family
horrifying
thing.
enough to spring you into action.
Well, I did rescue my dog, but she still looks pathetic. Are they going to replay this, or can we watch it on?
you watch on Hulu. I checked this
Oh,
morning.
you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't get the juice of watching it live, I guess. But
Like
I don't
if
think
someone
we did anyway. I think it was delayed on the West Coast. So
Oh, okay.
we weren't watching it live to begin with.
I got to see this third to the last episode of Big Bang Theory. I got to be in the live audience for that.
Oh, really? How was that?
Really, really interesting. The bits are like 2 minutes long,
Mhm.
and they do everything at least twice, sometimes 3 times, and they've got a little MC guy who's entertains you for the long stretches in between.
Mhm.
And the sets are all like straight across, so you can't actually see all of the sets, but you can see like 3 or 4 of them. And every time they do a bit and then they go to do it again, the guy would go, "Okay, you've never heard these jokes before. Laugh again." And your whole job is to be the laugh track.
Right.
And I thought it was real interesting because at one point they did something really sad, because there were some moments coming up to the end, and we all went, "Oh," and they stopped and went, "No, you're here to laugh." Well, don't do sad stuff then.
It's a live studio audience. You get what you wanted.
It's the
Filmed
longest.
before a highly disciplined live studio audience.
It was the 2 or 3 episodes before the one I saw. It became the longest running live audience sitcom.
Mm.
It was very, very fun.
So if you saw the last one, you are now the record-setting audience, a member of the record-setting audience.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, had you ever been to something that had been filmed before a live studio
No.
audience before?
No, they take your phone from you before you go in, so
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no proof I was
Did they
actually
put it
there.
in the little pouch, or did they just like file it away somewhere?
They had little pouches. We left
Yeah.
ours in the car because we knew ahead of time.
Right. They do that for a lot of the screenings too. They
Yeah.
put it in the pouch, but
We Robert Lloyd Lewis was the producer of Dexter, and he's a fan of Apple Podcasts, and he happened to listen to my show, and he asked me if I ever wanted to come up and see the set of Dexter, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" And so he said we were allowed to take pictures, but we weren't allowed to post them anywhere. So we were allowed to show them to people, but like in person, and it was so funny because we were so excited. We took all these pictures, and when we got back, we realized, look, here's a picture of a closet. Yeah, but those are his kill shirts hanging in the closet. Or here's an air conditioner. And it looks like an air
but
conditioner.
it's that air conditioner.
It was really funny. That was
Well,
amazing, though. That was fun.
Video folks, thanks for watching. We appreciate everything you do to help the show. Audio folks, stick around. I've got more tales to come.